Went for a walk up a mountain with my dad in Wales, and he said, hey, why don't you join the business? And at the time I was like, no, I don't want to work with my mum and dad. For a long time, I never thought I saw myself in this this leadership entrepreneurial role. Yeah, I was letting the business run me. I was letting the business, I was trying to run the business that my parents ran. And I suddenly had this sort of epiphany moment where I was like, well, no, I can run it my way. Making digital things accessible will help, will make, will change people's lives. That I really love is the kind of the mindset change that you're able to create in organisations who perhaps haven't been prioritising accessibility.
I've just really enjoyed our chat with Lucy Collins on web usability. And there's a few things that stood out to me. It's all around just having passion and drive. To go forward, in the face of things not working well. I really enjoyed her talking about making herself a priority, because she is basically that stone, the building block of the business. And without her, the business doesn't run properly, because she is the business driving everything forward. And also, what I really like is that realizing that disability and accessibility needs can occur at any point in our lives. And we should be really mindful of that and not dismiss this whole area, but really to embrace it. And we should all be questioning and asking more around it. But I don't know if you had any others.
Yeah, I mean, I just believe everything that
everything in it.
See, I'm like firmly behind it. It's a really, really good chat that we had, and I think our listeners are really going to enjoy it.
Yeah. I tell you what, let's not waste a second more. Let's just go to listen. Go and hear Lucy.
Here we go.
Hi, I'm Lucy Collins, and this is my tech journey.
Hi, Lucy. So what is web usability?
WebUsability, we are a user research and accessibility consultancy. And basically, we help people understand what it is that people need from the digital world, and then we test to ensure that that digital world works for everybody. And we have a big focus on digital inclusion and making sure that everyone has access to everything online as much as possible, so that we can all participate fully in the online world.
Wow, girl after my own heart. That's what I'm really passionate about that as well. And what made you get into that?
So, as we said, a healthy dollop of nepotism. So I'm very fortunate to be running a business that my parents started 23 years ago. And I think it's a little unusual perhaps in this space to have a family-run business. But here we are. And I guess I grew up surrounded by user research. So my parents started the business when I was 10 or 11. They'd previously been working as management consultants. And I think kind of without really realising it, there had been this I had absorbed what it is to be a user researcher and what it is to create a good online experience through dinner party conversations and hearing my parents run the business, because they did that from home for most of my childhood, which again, I guess 20 odd years ago was fairly unusual. And I went off and went and did a couple of ski seasons and had a good time in my early 20s. And then I started getting jobs in marketing because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I thought grown-ups did marketing. So I did that. I worked for an academic journal for a number of years doing their marketing. But I think I always felt a step removed from the customer. And that might have just been the marketing function I was working in. But then having worked with marketing teams subsequently, I often feel like we make a lot of assumptions about what it is that people want from us and how people want to be communicated with. And I sort of was looking to move out of London and come back to the West Country where we are now. And I went for a walk up a mountain with my dad in Wales, and he said, hey, why don't you join the business? And at the time I was like, no, I don't want to work with my mum and dad. That would be horrible. But I sort of thought after a bit of reflection, actually, you know what, I really like what they do. And then I began the kind of journey of training up to be a user researcher. And all of a sudden I was every day having conversations with clients, with my clients' customers, and really understanding what makes them tick, what they need from these online experiences, what wasn't working. And so much of it was so basic. And it was through that I then also started down the digital inclusion path, because accessibility is very much a subset of usability. And while usability testing and user research is our bread and butter, actually to make something that works well for everybody, you have to consider accessibility almost as the starting principle. And that's the founding principle of universal design. It starts with access, then it's usability, and then it's universal design on top of that. And so I think the accessibility for me felt like a very natural specialization that I wanted to explore. And it also very much driven by a kind of personal reason, being that my mum, who founded the business, has got multiple sclerosis, is very physically disabled these days, is in a wheelchair. And I would see daily the struggles that she would have because of the barriers that people put in her way, both physically and digitally. And every time we get to speak to an organization or a client and break down just some of those barriers, it feels like you're doing a little bit of good in the world. And so, yeah, kind of a long-winded answer to your question, but I guess my journey has been, like a lot of people's, a bit squiggly, a bit circuitous, and very much influenced by my parents, which to them, I'm very grateful for it, really.
Yeah. This kind of story. So my daughter's watched me launch my business, and at the moment she's just like, oh, too cool for school. And I'm really hoping that at some point she will come in and join us with it. So you give me a little bit of hope there,
It's not something I ever thought I would do. And if anything, I had watched my parents run a business or run businesses for my whole life. I was like, I never want to run a business. God, that looks stressful. I'm a very good employee. I'm very good at doing.
Yeah.
And so for a long time, I never thought I saw myself in this sort of this leadership entrepreneurial role. And I think in hindsight, I knew when I joined the business, clearly my dad had a very clear idea of what he wanted in terms of a succession plan. But for a long time, I've been in the business nearly 9 years now. And for a lot of that time, I was like, no, I'm very happy being a researcher. I'm very happy just doing the project delivery. And it's only in the last 3 or 4 years that we started to really talk about me taking on a more kind of leadership role in the business, and then did the official handover of power last year. And I guess, so this has felt like a very much a new chapter for the business, but it's not something I saw myself doing. But I'm loving it, actually, way more than I thought I would, even good. With the ups and downs.
Yeah, it is good fun. It's hard work, but it's good fun.
It is good fun. Yeah. It's very rewarding. I think when I think I had been letting the business run me for a long time, and with taking ownership last October, in the last year, kind of almost exactly, I think for the first 6 months of that, I was very much just I was letting the business run me. I was letting the business, I was trying to run the business that my parents ran. And I suddenly had this sort of epiphany moment where I was like, well, no, I can run it my way, and I can be a bit more purpose-led, and I can have a compassionate, empathetic leadership style, and I can do it so it's in harmony with having 2 young children. And that's really powerful and really empowering, actually.
It's wonderful. It's really great to hear this story of the squiggly journey and empowerment. And you've mentioned digital inclusion and accessibility. And I'd love to hear a bit more about the impacts that you have seen as a result of your work. Yeah. Because it's really important work, obviously.
Yeah. So I think there's like 2 sides of the impact conversation. And the first is obviously the impact in that we are allowing people to self-serve online in a way that potentially previously they've not been able to. So it's it's the person who uses a speech recognition software who is able to go and buy a computer game because they're so into gaming and they have a adapted gaming setup, but they haven't been able to effectively buy games online because something simple like a buy now button doesn't work with their assistive technology, and so they have to get somebody else to come in and help them do that. And every time they ask for help, it's like they give away a little bit of their power and a little bit of their independence. And so, it's that side of things where you are enabling people to participate fully online. But also the bit I really love is the kind of the mindset change that you're able to create in organizations who perhaps haven't been prioritizing accessibility or haven't, like Becky, you've been doing with your app, thinking about accessibility from the very beginning of a development process. And we do a lot of inclusive user testing. We do a lot of testing with people who have lived experience of disability. And we always try and encourage our clients to observe that testing in real time because they feel the pain of these people and they get that real experiential knowledge of what is it like just momentarily to walk in the shoes of these people and understand the frustration of a single button not being labeled correctly and that it completely stops their journey through a website, or a main menu that they cannot expand with their screen reader, so they cannot find and navigate your website. And it's that kind of moment of change that often occurs in those situations, and the feedback that we then hear from clients following those testing sessions. That is amazing. And it often gives me goosebumps at the end of it. We'll get clients saying, I've never seen someone who uses a screen reader navigate the online world. Wow, isn't that amazing? And we work with some incredible people who they will navigate a website with their screen reader quicker than I can as a sighted user. if the website is coded up properly for them, if it is going to work for them. And it's only when those barriers fall down that you suddenly see how much the responsibility is with us as the people that develop those experiences, and obviously not with the people at the other end who are trying to use and engage with those services. It's not for them to overcome those barriers. It's for us to not put them in their way in the first place.
I saw a great example of this being demonstrated by AbilityNet, who I know that you're familiar with.
Yeah.
And when I saw that using a screen reader, and when a website isn't coded, the difficulty that a person with visual impairment has, it's quite shocking. So it really makes you lean into, we need digital inclusion. It's really helpful. And in the warm-up, the pre-chat before this podcast, we were talking about this and how it isn't just about disabilities that perhaps someone is born with. It's the disabilities we happen as we go through life.
Yeah.
So, for example, I know that I suffer from dry eyes brought on by a secondary condition, and I now speak my blogs, and then I go from speech to text. So could you give us some more examples of basically accessibility tools, really?
Yeah, I love this because often actually tools that we think of as very mainstream these days were developed as an assistive technology in the first place. So any voice recognition tool, Alexa, Echo Dot, all of those things, Siri, when you're talking to your phone, those are assistive technologies. Those will have originally been developed to support people who have motor impairments, who cannot use their hands necessarily to use a mouse or touch a screen, but they are completely embedded as part of our society these days. I will so regularly send a voice note over texting someone these days because I've got a baby in one arm and I'm trying to do something with the other, or you're trying to do it while you're on the move. So that's one lovely example. I think you've also got things like we were talking briefly before we started recording about the Meta Ray-Bans. So this is a really exciting new technology that Meta have joined up with Ray-Ban to create, and they are effectively a pair of very sexy sunglasses. They're the Wayfarer model. I got to see them demoed this week for the first time, and basically within the frame, you've got all this technology that allows people to see. And so they have been developed to support the blind and visually impaired community. And there are things you can basically talk to the glasses and ask them questions. So, hey, Meta, what's in front of me? Are there any obstacles on the path in front of me? And Meta will be, the glasses will be able to say, okay, you've got a sign to your right and it looks like there's a bollard to the left or whatever else it might be. But actually the use case of these glasses is potentially so much bigger and more exciting. I mean, I'm desperate to go and get myself a pair, and I'm a sighted person, because there's some really interesting other uses of them. Some examples that got shared at this conference I was at was being in an art gallery and having the glasses describe the environment to you. So you don't have your phone out looking down all the time, or you're not using one of those clunky audio guides, or being able to live translate conversations that are happening in real time. So you can be, immediately connecting with someone in a different language in a way that it's been very difficult to do. And I know that Google Translate and things like that have helped with that, in that you can be, sat in the back of a taxi and sort of communicating with someone like that. But this could be in literally real time. It makes me think of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Babelfish, and suddenly we will be able to communicate and connect in all sorts of different languages thanks to this technology that was originally designed for the blind community. And I think so much of accessibility, to go back to the principles of universal design, it's why it is like the central part. It's why it's so important. And it's also, it helps everybody make things accessible, and it works better for everyone. Yes, it will work better for the person who is blind, or like my mum who's physically disabled, but actually speech recognition software helps me as a mum do things. It will help you if you are carrying your shopping, you need to try and do something without any hands present. It might help you if you've got a temporary incapacitation, you've broken your arm, or you've had an eye surgery. There's so many reasons. And I think, to your point, Beverly, that you said earlier about the fact that I think the stat is 80% of disabilities are acquired rather than something that you're born with. So at any point, this is a community that any of us could be part of. And as we live longer and as we have more health conditions in our older years, inevitably we are going to benefit from an accessibility technology. So why not make everything accessible in the first place?
Yeah, accessibility and inclusion, that is the way forward. 100%. Let's uplift everyone as we go along this tech journey. Absolutely.
Yeah, and you always run any usability testing with real users. You said you work with lived experience consultants. So I'm assuming, have you got a team of in-house?
So we actually just recruit members of the public to help us. So we will do kind of general usability testing where we are, working with, it will very much depend on the client. So, we've recently done a project with a big gym brand, for example. And so we were working with people who like to go to the gym, but also people that run gyms. But we're also doing a project for Cardiff University, for example, where we are focusing on inclusive user testing training and digital accessibility training, upskilling their teams to be able to deliver accessible content across their digital estate. So we're working with some members of the public who have lived experience of disability to basically create some training material that is then, it's just that much more impactful when you see those real experiences of people. It's as much as possible, we try and work with people who are not kind of technical experts, because also, a lot of people that use assistive technologies are not technical experts. And so to expect them to be able to find workarounds and things like that, it makes it a slightly artificial test, because actually we want to really identify the barriers that are going to affect everybody, even those people who are fairly new to using their technology or not as experienced with it. We work with a mix. Some people are a little bit more experienced, but a lot of the time, just members of the public, really.
Yeah, so it all just depends on the client and what their needs are for that specific time. Yeah.
Something is springing to mind. We're in the age of AI, artificial intelligence. It's on everyone's lips. And I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts around AI and accessibility? Is it going to actually make our lives better?
Yeah. I mean, yes, it is the topic a la mode, isn't it, at the moment? Yes, in a nutshell, I think there is some really, really exciting things about AI in the accessibility space. So the Meta Ray-Bans, for example, are AI enhanced. They are creating such an amazing experience. The ability to offer hyper-personalized experiences is probably the most exciting thing about AI in the accessibility space, because we know when we design a digital experience, it will not work 100% of the time for 100% of its users. And that's particularly the case when we think about people who have disabilities or who are neurodivergent and might have quite specific needs about what it is that works for them. Is it the design? Is it the way that the colors are overlaid on each other? Is it stopping moving content? Is it the technically how the website is built and how it works with assistive technology? So the idea that I, as a user, or AI, amorphous AI, knows that what exactly I, Lucy Collins, need when I come to a website, and then it can just spool up a website that is completely suited to my need based on a repository of content that exists there. That potentially is like a really exciting experience, and it would mean that there would never be any compromise, because one of the challenges within accessibility is there is a conflict with access needs. So what might work for a blind person and using a screen reader actually might conflict with something that's going to work well for a speech recognition software user. Like one example of that would be really clear link labels are obviously essential for a screen reader user because they often hear them out of context. So if you just say read here, find out more, it doesn't mean anything to a screen reader user. But for a speech recognition software user, and particularly if that's compounded with a speech impediment or something like that, for them to read out a very long link label might mean that they struggle to actually activate that link in the first place. So there's always this balance that needs to be found, this compromise that has to happen when we think about access needs. And so I think AI has real potential to almost do away with that, because we can create completely unique experiences for everybody based on their specific lived experience, which is unique to them.
Yeah, I mean, one of the examples we've been working on with our app at the moment is the colour themes. And there's obviously the AAA rating for contrast, but actually some neurodivergent users, if it's too high contrast, then that affects their vision. I mean, certainly I get vertigo looking at the screen sometimes. Even these stripy lines behind you at the moment are like, whoa.
I keep doing that as well. I keep thinking of feeling a bit wobbly somehow.
Yeah. So I think that's it. So I get that as well. So it's having different options for people so that they can calm it down as well, or have the high contrast if they need it. And it's having those options out there. And if we can personalize it even more, then that would be brilliant. Just switching, you said about motherhood, and I know you've spoken openly about navigating leadership while balancing motherhood. Could you tell us how you do that? How do you manage it?
Not very well always. It's been I mean, it's been amazing, but it's also been, I mean, it's tough, isn't it? Running businesses and having babies is really difficult. And my eldest is 4 today, in fact. And so she came along when I was a director of the business, but not sort of really at the helm. And so, but even then, I have been responsible for all the business development at WebUsability for, the last 5 or 6 years. And so for me to step away from the business means that all that activity stops, really. And it's one of those things, in hindsight, I would love to have prepared myself and prepared the business better for having babies. But hey, here we are. And, last year I had my second daughter, Joey, in the July, and I acquired WebUsability officially in the October.
Wow.
And yeah, and you're like, this wasn't planned. But actually, I think it's been very positive, because I think also, like, I have tried to set very strict boundaries about finding that harmony, that balance between the business and my babies, and making sure that I am present and around for them. And I am the default parent. My husband's a pilot. He works away a lot. So I have to create a business that is sustainable and in harmony with that existence. And so that was kind of one of the turning points for me, with thinking about the business and not letting the business run me, but actually running the business so that it works for me, and putting myself first in it, which I hadn't been doing. It would have been clients, staff, my parents, and then me right at the very bottom. And I suddenly had this moment back in February where I was like, this is all wrong. Like, I need to flip this. So it's about I don't work Mondays. I try not to work Mondays. It doesn't always work, but that is the intention that I set. Mondays is my day with my youngest. And I might work in her lunch nap, but I want to be present for her. I don't want to be that mum who's answering the emails in soft play, which I have been. And you always then just feel like you're doing both jobs badly, don't you? Yeah. So it's about being very clear about those boundaries, and sticking to them. And when I notice that I'm not sticking to those boundaries, or they're creeping, or I'm doing more work on Mondays than I had, set myself doing, okay, take a step back. Why is that the case? Do I need to delegate more? Why have I taken on so much at the moment? And just trying to be mindful of the fact that you don't get this time back with your kids. And the business, the business will still be here. And I think what I have done as a result is I've given myself a lot more leeway in terms of the time it is that I want to achieve things. So I kind of have a vision that in 10 years' time, the business, might run itself. I might have the opportunity to walk away from it, go do something else. I don't know. But it's about knowing that, okay, well, I'm going to use the next 5 years while my kids are preschool to just lay those foundations. Like, I'm not looking for extravagant growth. I'm not looking to, suddenly recruit 20 people, but I want to have all the processes, all the foundations in place that are going to allow me to do that potentially in 5 years' time, when, the kids are at school. I might have a little bit, I might have a bit more time. Of course I won't have more time, but, it might feel like I have more time, or at least I know that there's hopefully 5 days a week-ish where they're going to be in education. And so it's someone said to me that you underachieve what you can achieve. You overestimate what you can achieve in a year, but you underestimate what you can achieve in 10. And so I think I'm trying to be realistic about what I can achieve so that it does remain balanced. And I keep using this word harmony, because I feel for me that's really important, that it's balance suggests that it's equal. Harmony recognizes that there is ebb and flow to this, and I have peaks and troughs with my work life, and peaks and troughs with when the girls need me. And so it's about making sure that across the board, I feel like I'm getting it just about right. And on the whole, I do actually, which is really nice.
Yeah. Well-being. It's so good to focus on well-being, especially when you're self-employed, you're on an entrepreneurial journey, because it's that missing link. You've got to self-care in order to give to everyone else. I'm really glad you've mentioned that. Now, where do you see, what's the future for WebUsability?
Well, our vision is to create an equitable online world that works for everyone. And I appreciate it's lofty and probably unachievable in the short term, but I think, these sorts of visions are supposed to be a little bit unachievable in a way. And that's where we're striving to be. I think I'm trying to be a more purpose-led business. I really want to lead by example, both for my staff, but also for the people that we work with, that accessibility and usability are not two separate things. They are one and the same. And every conversation we have about usability should include accessibility. And at the moment, or historically, our clients have come to us either for like normal, and I use very big air quotes around that, normal usability testing and accessibility testing. And what I would really like us to get to a point to is where we are doing inclusive testing as part of every single project, because there's intersectionality with all of this, isn't it? Okay, yeah, we did a project with gym owners, with people that go to gyms. There will be plenty of people with disabilities that go to gyms. There will be plenty of neurodivergent people who want to go to a gym. So if we're screening for that information and then including unique insights that are relevant to those audiences, in addition to the kind of more general usability issues that we're finding, then already you're having that conversation about accessibility in a space where probably accessibility is not very well talked about for that client, for example. So that's the kind of the dream, is that we work more in partnership with people and that we are embedding the accessibility conversation through everything that we're doing as much as possible, so that we're constantly challenging people to think about accessibility from the beginning rather than trying to retrofit it. And ideally, so that it's not driven by the stick of legislation, which obviously is big in the accessibility space. But hey, if it gets us in the right direction, it gets us there. And I won't complain too much about all the different rules that are out there.
Yeah, it definitely helps having the rules, but we should all just do it anyway.
Because it's the right thing to do, right?
Yeah.
But I'm learning that not everybody is going to be motivated by that.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely fine. So when we think about how we influence upwards and sideways, we need to think about what people's motivations are and meeting them where they're at. So is it return on investment? Is it the bottom line? Well, great. Okay, there's so many stats out there that demonstrate that if you invest in accessibility, it has a positive impact on your return on investment, both digitally, but also more generally. A more inclusive workspace generates more revenue. Yeah. So that's an easy argument to win. If we're thinking about legislation, then yeah, fine. There's all sorts of stuff out there that require you to be accessible. And the European Accessibility Act is a big one that came in last year, which is a really, as legislation goes, quite exciting, because it's a very holistic approach to digital accessibility. It's not just you need to comply with these guidelines. It's you need to make your service perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. And it allows for kind of interpretation of what that means, which is kind of difficult from a enforcement perspective, perhaps. But I actually think the key thing is that it lends itself to us needing to include disabled and neurodivergent people in this community, in those conversations right from the very beginning, and ensuring that they're part of the solution, and we are co-creating all those outcomes together.
Absolutely. Should we go for the quick fire questions?
I think we should.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know.
We did warn you.
I know.
Right.
I'm probably just going to have a mind blank as you throw stuff at me, but let's go.
We've got 5 quick fire questions. This is how we always wrap up our podcast. So are you ready?
Yes,
Beverly, it's your turn.
Yes, it's my turn. Yes, so I'm going to go for the quick fire questions. Okay, so question number 1. Yeah. How did you fund your business?
How do I fund my business? So I'm very fortunate in that I have acquired a business that was pre-existing. So that I call myself a refounder rather than a founder in that respect. So yeah, that's not a one-word answer at all. So, but our funding, we have always been able to do it kind of bootstrap the whole thing. And because we're not developing a product, it's been service-based. It's been fairly straightforward. So that and the odd overdraft, but hopefully we don't dwell in there too long.
Yeah, that's very honest and real. That's what happens. What's your best marketing tip?
Connection, personal connection. I really shied away from the whole personal brand LinkedIn thing. It made me feel quite uncomfortable, but actually it's been amazing since I leaned into that, and I've really, people buy from people, and when I connect with people and they see why I do it and that I'm passionate about it, that's almost the biggest selling tool that we have. So how I replicate that and reproduce it so it isn't 100% reliant on me, that's probably the next challenge.
Definitely. I mean, it's basically personal connections. We hear that all the time, and I'm all about meeting people in person, talking to them, and you get that great buy-in. Quick fire, yes. I'm carried away there. I'm really enjoying this. Okay, who inspires you and why?
It might sound a bit corny, but my mum. So obviously I've taken over her business. She's the reason I'm so passionate about digital accessibility. She has 3 degrees, did a PhD while raising 2 children, running a business and doing a house renovation. I honestly don't know how she did it all. And yeah, genuinely, she's my inspiration.
Yeah, excellent. Business tool you couldn't live without, and why?
It's probably, the video calling, like Teams, Zoom, all of those software these days. I spend my life on video calls, and it's so wonderful that it allows you to run your business from a shepherd's hut in the garden.
Fair enough. And what keeps you going when things get tough?
I think a belief in what I'm doing. I think a belief in that making digital things accessible will help, will change people's lives. Because you get a bit ground down by it sometimes, don't you? But knowing that moment where you've had a session with a disabled person and they have, we've tested something that has been improved because of the research we've done, and you see the impact that has had. Yeah, that's a pretty nice moment.
Yeah.
It is.
Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
The passion that shines through, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then the last question that we always ask our guests is, what advice would you give your younger self?
Don't be afraid to prioritize yourself. I am an inherent people pleaser, and I have always often put other people before myself. And it's been really nice in the last year to invest in myself, do some learning, have a little therapy. And it's made the world of difference to my brain, how I operate, and I think as a result, how I lead my business.
Fantastic. Invest in yourself. I love that, Lucy. Lucy, where can people find you? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I am now very present on LinkedIn. So Lucy Collins, WebUsability. You can find me on LinkedIn, and our website, webusability.co.uk. If anyone needs any user research or accessibility services, then do get in touch. We'd love to hear from you.
That's fantastic.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. I think I could talk for another 3 hours, I think. But
it's been really good.
Yeah, thank you for that.